Hello, and welcome back to my channel. If you are new, welcome to my channel. My name is Shelly, and we are all about books here. We just have a bunch of fun discussing books, everything about them, whether that be a book review or whether that just be commentary on books and the happenings of the book world. And today we are just going to have another discussion, and I'm really excited about this discussion. This one, it stems from, I believe, a comment and a discussion that I had like months ago, like maybe last year, definitely last year actually. And it was really interesting because this discussion was going on, and what I was picking up from this reader is this very sense of elitism. And I was just like, I would really love to speak about, the elitism of some readers and the elitism that exists in the literature industry. And then as I was like making notes on it, and this was ages ago, and I'm so surprised I never really spoke on it before, but as I was making notes on it and doing some research on it, I was just like, there is another layer to this, and that is like genres and genre wars. And I'm just like, okay, maybe I won't go too much into the literary elitism that I see among some readers, but I'm going to speak about that and connect it with genre wars that we see, and how some genres are still looked down on. And I thought that would be so much fun to have. But before we get into that, if you have been with me for a while, you know that for the last few weeks I have started giving reviews of books that I'm reading, just to give, some recommendations, especially because I don't do too many videos that focus solely on doing book reviews. So we're just continuing that, and I'm having a lot of fun because it's a great way to actually tell people about the books that I'm reading and recommending books to others. So yeah, let's get into it. Today's book is Everyone on This Train is a Suspect by Benjamin Stevenson. Now, this is actually like the second book of the Ernest Cunningham series by obviously Benjamin Stevenson. But the thing is, you can read this on its own, and that's so cool. So the first book was everyone in my family has killed someone or has murdered someone. I can never remember which word he uses, but it's just so fun. So basically, in the first book, there's a lot that happened, Chuck. So a lot that happened, but he went on a retreat, a family retreat in the mountains, and several people died. But his family had a history, and that's why several people died. You're gonna have to read the book. That's as much as I can tell you. But with this book, he basically continues, because from what happened in the first book, he was able to write a book essentially, and this is technically the book. It's really interesting, but he basically has become famous, and he's invited to be a speaker on this very like exclusive retreat that's on a train. And he, it's this festival, and they invite, a lot of writers and whatnot, and he's invited to be a speaker, and he's really excited. It's like his first one, and there are like big writers that are going to be there, and he's going to be in their midst, and he's like really excited but shy, but also he knows he has to write his second book because his agent is waiting on it, and he's struggling. And a murder occurs on the train. Big surprise there, because obviously, but the thing is, so the literary festival that he's speaking on, it's a festival for like thriller and mystery writers. So basically you have a bunch of people who write murder mysteries on one train, and one of them died. And so because you guys have written so much, obviously everyone's going to want to play detective, but also you have a lot of people who potentially know how to get away with murder, and there are a lot of layers to the story. Now, one thing I love about this, the layers. Everyone had a background, and obviously everyone had a motive, but everyone has a background, everyone has a story, and you go through it, you just dig through it, and it's so much fun. And then you get to the end, and you're just like, the heck? How did we get here? And that's one of the things I love about the Ernest series on a whole. Even with the first book, he is great because he gives us all the information to figure out who the killer is without giving us a damn thing. As in, he tells us everything we need to know, and yet he tells us nothing, because he mixes it up so much that you're just sat there like, why the heck would I have gone down that road? And it's so much fun. I think out of the 3 books in the series, because there are currently 3, there's the first one, there's this one, and then he had like a Christmas special, like a short Christmas book. I think this is definitely like my favorite out of the 3. I thought it was so well done. I thought the layers, I thought that the themes and the like motifs in this book were absolutely amazing. The themes which were explored, I thought was really, really fun. And I said, wow, you're even giving me things to think about while I'm trying to figure out who the killer is. Thank you. But genuinely, I think it's probably one of my favorite thrillers ever now. It was definitely one of my favorite books that I read last year. So I'm telling you, go and pick it up. Pick up the first book. I think the first book, because it was like the introduction of everything. Oh, you'll be confused as heck. But I think because I had more history with this one, I definitely wasn't as confused, but I was still confused. I think that's his style of storytelling. It's definitely witty. It's funny. It's great fun. I really enjoyed it. This one was definitely the best in the series, 100%, no doubt about it. And like I said, you don't actually have to read the first book because they give us a background and they kind of mention the events of the first book in this book. So even if you read this as a standalone, you can get away with it, but I do still recommend giving yourself a bit of background with the first book. But believe me when I say, absolutely amazing. It's great. I love it so much. I love it so much. Like, genuinely, I'm like, this is a very, it's very, I think it's just very smart. It's a very, very smart way of telling the story. And yeah, I definitely adore it. But I have droned on and on and on. And I end up doing this every time I do a review, where like a good chunk of the video ends up being a review. Not a good chunk, but like the first part at least. And I'm sorry for that, but I've heard people say they enjoyed the reviews. So we're going to continue for now. But yeah, today we're diving into, this really, really interesting topic or debate, because I think it has been like a debate in the literary world, the genre wars and the literary elitism, which, comes from it. Because it's true, some genres are looked down upon in the literary world. And so you kind of have to ask yourself why. From fantasy and romance to speculative fiction, certain categories are often dismissed as lesser forms of literature. But where does this bias come from? And is it finally starting to fade? Like, is it? I don't know. But yeah, today we're going to explore the history, the controversies, and the future of genre fiction. First and foremost, we're going to speak about literary elitism, the thing that started all of this. And, literary elitism, it has deep historical roots, okay? So, like, in the 19th century, like, British literature was largely shaped by the social elite. We know this. We know that back in the day, not everyone could read. Not everyone had the privilege of reading. We know that not everyone had access to read. It was something for the elite. Access to publication was limited to those with wealth and education, meaning that what we now consider classic literature, it often reflects the values of the upper classes, which is why you'll read some classic books and you're just like, some parts of this is so out of touch. Yes, it is. Because they were. And you see, this exclusivity, it created a hierarchy where serious literature, which was often complex and inaccessible, it was seen as superior to popular or commercial fiction. And we see that a lot still, let's be honest. But over time, for the most part, this evolved into a divide between literary fiction and genre fiction. Now, genre fiction, for those of you who probably haven't heard that term, because I think we're used to hearing literary fiction as its own genre, but genre fiction, I know some people are just like, the heck does that mean? But it basically refers to works categorized by specific themes or tropes, such as fantasy, romance, science fiction, or mystery, okay? Because, we have literary fiction, which is often defined by its focus on character development, style, and serious themes. But these definitions are far from like just clear cut. A writer who I'm so excited to have on my list of authors that I am going to be diving into this year as as I'm doing my journey of going to high epic fantasy, Ursula K. Le Guin. She wrote the Earthsea trilogy. I believe it's a trilogy, but she wrote that series and I'm really, really excited to dive into it. But she pointed out during debates about Kazuo Ishiguro's The Buried Giant, that she pointed out that literary critics often claim that exceptional genre works have transcended genre, and they dismiss lower profile works as unworthy, basically, and it really just shows the double standard. And this double standard, it perpetuates a cycle of bias. But the thing is, at its core, literary elitism is tied to classism. Like, once again, it has deep roots in history, but at its core, it's tied to classism. See, in the early 20th century, the intellectuals, essentially, they sought to differentiate themselves from the masses by championing opaque and complex literature that required formal education to appreciate. In literature, basically, it created this cultural divide where enjoying certain authors or genres became a marker of social status. And the thing is, this elitism, it persists today in subtle ways, but some people aren't as subtle as others, let's be honest, but it does persist for the most part in subtle ways. For example, romance, okay? Romance is a genre dominated by women writers and readers, let's be honest, and it's often dismissed as frivolous or lacking in depth. And similarly, fantasy and science fiction, they have long been marginalized despite their profound influence on culture. And so I find it really, really funny because I'm just like, I really love me my fantasy. And I'm just like, so you think that I'm lesser than because I enjoy me a bit of fantasy and science fiction? Oh, please. I'm just like, I'm not lesser than. I enjoy what I enjoy in it. It is what it is. Because I enjoy literary fiction as well. I enjoy historical fiction. I enjoy genres of all kinds. But then because I enjoy a certain genre, there are definitely people out there who would perceive me as not being cultured, essentially, simply because I enjoy these specific genres. But the thing is, some people will argue that the genre wars are finally ending. I'm so sorry. What? That's hilarious. And the reason some people say this is because, like, the rise of speculative fiction authors like Margaret Atwood, obviously, you know, she wrote The Handmaid's Tale, has blurred the lines between literary and genre fiction. And I love that for her. I'm just like, you go, sis. However, let's be honest, skirmishes still flare up, okay? For example, so Stuart Kelly, who is a literary critic, and honestly, for a lot of literary critics, I definitely place them in the literary elitism bracket, 100%. Not all of them, but a lot of them. But he recently reignited debates by questioning whether historical fiction should be considered a genre at all. Listen, and this is why I put them in the category of just like, you know, people who are, you know, are moving on literary elitism. Because are you kidding? See, these lingering biases, they show that while progress has been made, full acceptance, it still remains quite elusive. Because what do you mean, should it be a genre? I just can't. Like, things like this just make me frustrated because are you okay? Like, are you okay? But the thing is, yes, literary elitism, it has its roots in classism and, you know, it has its roots in just like deep history and how elitism worked back then. But market forces also play a role in perpetuating genre hierarchies, really. See, online platforms like Amazon, and you know how we feel about Amazon over here, guys. We don't rock with them. We rock with them because we have to, but we don't rock with them like that. You know how it is. You know how it is. But yeah, see, Amazon, they've created over 13,000 micro genres to cater to niche audiences. And this is how you have a lot of bestsellers a lot of the time, because you'll be the bestseller in one of these genres. Like, let's be honest. Not to say that a book won't be great, but with so many little mini genres, a lot of times an author will find them at the top of the list of at least one. It's true. And so while it helps connect readers with books they love, because you get to, you know, be more specific when it comes to like categorizing these books, it also reinforces the segmentation of literature into very, very rigid categories. Because when I tell you Amazon has a category for every book, some categories I'm just like, okay, now you're just taking the mix. Some obviously you're just like, okay, this has helped in terms of helping me get more insight into what the book is about. But Amazon has dwindled down. Like, they have gone to the depths of every book and found a subgenre that exists for everything. It's impressive if it wasn't kind of concerning. Because like this micro segmentation, it can make it harder for genre authors to gain mainstream recognition or to cross over into literary circles. Like you're just down there in the dust, if we're being honest. So really the question now becomes, how do we move past these biases? Now, one solution is acknowledging that all genres have merit, all genres have value, because you can gain something from everything if it's written well, let's be honest. You know, some books are kind of trash. But even books that aren't written well, you can gain something from it because you can gain something from the critique you give it. But as Ursula K. Le Guin famously said, fantasy is not antithetical to literacy. And I love that. You see, in fact, many so called genre works explore themes just as complex and profound as any literary novel. Let's be honest, so many of them, they go into like interesting themes, so many like fantasy books, so many like even some romance books, like, but like, you know, fast romance books a lot of the time, you know, they delve into so many complex issues like identity. Some of them delve into classism, some of them will deal into, you know, into elitism, some touch on politics, some touch on like they touch on so many hard, very very hardcore topics a lot of the times. But some people still don't acknowledge that as, you know, them having merit, which is so funny to me. I'm just like, that's so weird, and you're being so weird to say this. But the thing is, readers also play a role by also broadening their horizons and challenging preconceived notions about what constitutes serious literature. I tell you guys, I read everything, like literally everything. Yes, we know that I have favorite genres. So I mainly read certain genres. I mainly read fantasy and I mainly read thrillers. But I read literary fiction. You know, I read a lot of theology. I read philosophy. I read like contemporary fiction. I read romance. Guys, I read everything. And the thing is, I find merit in them all. I Even if it's not something teaching me directly, the way that these books make me think, the way that they make me step back and analyze my life, analyze the world that I'm in, analyze the people I'm around. There is merit in a well written book, and we gotta add that caveat, well written. And even the badly written books, you can find some merit in them through your critique and the discussions that you can have. But it's it's really interesting that literary elitism still exists. And I find that because literary elitism is rooted in classism, I find that a lot of people who come off as elite are really just trying to find a way to squeeze themselves into a high class socioeconomic, you know, status that they're, you know, they're not really there financially. And I'm just like, it's okay, it's okay. Um, you don't gotta do it. You don't gotta do it. It's okay. But I'm not surprised, you know? It's in that way that divides form themselves, you know, by segmentation. So I'm not really surprised because it's something that's been happening for centuries, as we know. But we can definitely stop it. Readers, broaden your horizons, 100%. If you only read literary fiction, I love that for you. I do. Pick up a romance once in a blue moon, you know? Pick up a fantasy book once in a blue moon. It won't hurt you. It won't hurt you. For all you know, you might find something that you absolutely love. Pick up a YA book. Those are questionable a lot of the time. But believe me, you'll find something you love. And the thing is, you can pick up a book from a different century if you think that the books from the 21st century, because we've discussed how they're a bit like questionable nowadays. If you are of that stance and so you're just like, they definitely have no merit, then pick up a book from the 1900s then. I mean, fantasy is not new. Like, it's not something that's just rolled up out of the blue. No, it's been here for ages. So if you don't like the fantasies coming out now, go to the past. Go to the past. I'm sure you'll find something fun there. If you only read fantasy, I actually, you know, challenge you to read some lit fic, you know, challenge you to read some thrillers. Because I think another side of this conversation is the fact that because of the literary elitism that, you know, fantasy readers, that genre fiction readers essentially, so fantasy, thriller, romance, all of us, because of the criticism that they've been subject to, I think a lot of genre fiction readers have now gotten themselves in the corner of, you're just snobs and you guys suck. Because people who, and I'm not saying this is all of them. Let's not get it twisted. Let's not get it twisted. Not all people who read certain genres are snobs and, find themselves being classed as, the literary elite, or, they class themselves as that. Not all of them. No, let's get it together. But some of them, definitely 100%, because you will be speaking to someone, even sometimes watching a video of someone, and you can just tell they think they're superior to the rest of us because they read literary fiction. You can always tell when someone kind of has that vibe about them. But that's an assumption, and so assumptions are never great, okay? So we can assume, but until we're really proven right, let's not. But in that sense, like I said, if you read more genre fiction, maybe try some literary fiction, maybe speak to people who only read literary fiction. Because I know people who only read literary fiction, and they're lovely. They're absolutely lovely. It's just that they love the topics that are addressed in those books, but they will also read other books as well. I think once we stop judging each other because of what we prefer or what we find the most enjoyment in, then things can be all squared and Gucci. Because like I said, I do read all of those other genres, but I find the most enjoyment in just a couple. Because let's be real, there are so many books out there, and we as people are just different, and so we're not going to enjoy the same things all the time, and that's completely fine. But let's respect each other, please. I feel like at the end of all my videos, I have to really just emphasize that one of the main things that we have to do is just respect one another and treat each other as humans, please. And I'm sounding like a broken record again, and it's sad. I don't want to be a broken record, but if I have to be, then I guess I have to be. But how broken up am I going to be, really? Because truly, I feel like at the end of all my videos, it all boils down to us seeing each other as human and treating each other as such. Like, genuinely. Because truly, while progress has been made in breaking down these barriers between genre and literary fiction, the biases still persist. And it's annoying. It's annoying. So one thing we can do as readers and literary critics, is to celebrate diversity in storytelling. So whether it's through dragons or domestic dramas, we can create a more inclusive literary landscape. So please, guys, let's just have some respect. And yeah, let's broaden our horizons and see what else we can find enjoyment in. The world is broad, okay? The world is broad, Let's have fun. Please. Please. And that is really where I'm going to land with this. That's all from me for today. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Let me know what you think in the comments. And also let me know which side do you fall on. Do you read more lit fic or do you read more genre fic? And no judgment which side you fall on either way. Let us remember that, okay? And I want everyone to take note of my community guidelines in my comments, because I'm not finna play with y'all. I can go back and forth 1,000 times. I got time, and I will go back and forth with you 1,000 times. As long as we keep it respectful, I don't care. But you guys know what I say? Keep it respectful in the comments. I'm not afraid to block and delete. I'm very, very happy with blocking and deleting. Any bullying that goes down, any ghetto behavior that goes down in that comments, block and delete. And I won't even just block and delete you. I'll report you to YouTube. I'm so sorry. I don't know who you think this is. I will report you. I'm not afraid of you people. Get it together. Get it together. So as we are going to the comments after this video to discuss, let's do it with decorum. Okay? Let's do it with some decorism. Ever since I saw that video with that guy saying decorism instead of decorum, it's literally become one of my favorite words. I'm not even joking. So let's have some decorism in the comments, yeah? And I will see you guys next time. Bye.